Dr. Kim Tae-min wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished treating his latest patient. The blue-skinned Vortani trader had come in with a broken arm after a bar fight on the lower decks. It was just another day at Mercy's Edge, the medical station that served as a beacon of hope on the galaxy's dangerous frontier. Tae-min had been working at the station for 3 years now. He had seen every kind of alien injury and disease imaginable. Burns from plasma weapons, poison from exotic plants, and infections from bacteria that did not exist anywhere near Earth. Each case taught him something new about the strange creatures that filled the galaxy. The medical station floated in the empty space between star systems. It was not the most glamorous posting for a human doctor, but Tae-min loved the work. Every day brought new challenges and new species to help. The station's motto was simple: "We heal all who come in peace." Park Soo-jin, the head nurse, walked into the treatment room carrying a cup of coffee. She was young but experienced, having worked alongside Tae-min since he arrived at the station. Her kind nature made even the most frightened alien patients feel safe. "Another quiet day," Soo-jin said with a smile. "Only 12 patients so far." Tae-min laughed. 12 patients is quiet for you? You should have seen last week when that merchant convoy got attacked by raiders. We had 40 injured aliens in 6 hours." The doctor nodded, remembering the chaos of that day. Pirates and raiders were a constant threat in this part of space. The Galactic Council's patrol ships rarely came this far out, leaving traders and settlers to fend for themselves. Soo-jin sat down in the chair next to Tae-min's desk. "Have you ever heard the stories about the White Hunter?" "The what?" "The White Hunter. Back ho. Some of the alien traders have been talking about him again. They say he's a legend among the Kethrani." Tae-min shook his head. "I don't know much about Kethrani culture. They're the ones that look like big cats, right? More like leopards that learn to walk upright and use weapons," Soo-jin said. "They're fierce warriors. Most species in this sector are afraid of them. But the White Hunter is supposed to be different. Special." "Special how?" Soo-jin leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. "The stories say he's completely white, like snow. No other Kethrani looks like that. And he's supposed to be huge even for his species. Some traders claim he's 3 times the size of a normal Kethrani." Tae-min raised an eyebrow. "That sounds impossible." "The stories get stranger. They say he can track a single ship across entire star systems. That he once hunted a war criminal for 5 years, following him from planet to planet until he caught him. They call him the greatest hunter in the galaxy." "And you believe this?" Soo-jin shrugged. "The aliens who tell these stories don't seem like liars, and they all tell the same basic tale. A white Kethrani warrior who never fails to catch his prey." Dr. Lee Min-ho, the station's chief medical officer, walked into the room. He was older than Tae-min, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been running medical stations on the frontier for 20 years. "Are you two gossiping about spacer tales again?" Min-ho asked. "Soo-jin was telling me about some legendary Kethrani warrior," Tae-min replied. Min-ho snorted. "The White Hunter. I've been hearing that story for years. Every trader, smuggler, and pilot in this sector has a different version of it." "So you think it's just a myth?" Soo-jin asked. "I think lonely people in deep space like to tell stories to make their lives seem more interesting. A giant white alien warrior who can hunt anyone anywhere. It sounds like something out of a children's book." Tae-min was about to agree when the station's communication system crackled to life. The voice of Lieutenant Park Jun-seo, the station's security chief, filled the room. "Medical team to the docking bay immediately. We have an incoming ship requesting emergency medical assistance." Min-ho stood up quickly. "What kind of ship?" "Unknown class. The design doesn't match anything in our databases, and the pilot is broadcasting distress codes that are centuries old." Tae-min grabbed his medical kit. Emergency calls were common at Mercy's Edge, but something about this one felt different. The ancient distress codes were unusual. Most species had updated their emergency signals dozens of times over the centuries. The 3 medical staff members hurried through the station's corridors toward the docking bay. Other crew members were already gathering to see what kind of ship would use such old signals. Through the observation windows, they could see the approaching vessel. It was unlike anything Taemin had ever seen. The ship was long and sleek, with curved lines that reminded him of a predator in mid-leap. The hull was dark metal covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. "That's definitely not human construction," Minho said quietly. The ship docked with a soft thud that vibrated through the station's hull. Junseo and his security team took positions around the airlock, their weapons ready, but not raised. The station's policy was to treat all visitors as potential patients first and threats second. The airlock cycled through its sequence, and the doors slid open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. A wave of warm, musky air flowed out, carrying scents that reminded Taemin of a jungle on a distant world. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a shadow moved in the ship's corridor. The being that stepped through the airlock was massive. Even hunched over, it had to duck to fit through the human-sized door. Its body was covered in thick fur that was perfectly white, like fresh snow under starlight. The creature walked on two powerful legs, but its posture and movement were clearly feline. Taemin's breath caught in his throat. This was definitely a Kethrani, but unlike any he had seen in medical texts. This one was enormous, with muscles that rippled under its white fur and claws that could easily tear through metal. But it was the creature's eyes that made Taemin's heart skip. They were clouded and unfocused, moving without purpose as the being tried to orient itself in the unfamiliar space. The legendary White Hunter was blind. The great warrior took a few careful steps forward, moving with the cautious uncertainty of someone who could not see. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough, like distant thunder. "I seek the human healers," he said in accented but clear galactic standard. "I have traveled far to find you." Sujin stepped forward, her medical training overriding her amazement. "We're here to help. What's your name?" The massive alien's head turned toward her voice. "I am called Baekho, and I have come to beg." The medical bay had never held a patient like Baekho. The examination table groaned under his weight as Dr. Taemin and Nurse Sujin helped the massive Kethrani warrior settle onto it. Even lying down, Baekho was longer than most humans were, tall. Taemin studied his patient carefully. The white fur was pristine except for several old scars that crossed the warrior's chest and arms. Each scar told a story of battles fought and won, but it was clear that Baekho's greatest enemy now was one he could not fight with claws or weapons. "How long have you been losing your sight?" Taemin asked gently. Baekho's massive head turned toward the doctor's voice. His clouded eyes searched, but could not find Taemin's face. 5 years. At first, it was just a small cloud in my left eye. I thought it would heal on its own. But it got worse. Much worse. The cloud spread to both eyes. Colors faded first, then shapes became unclear. For the past 6 months, I have seen nothing but darkness. Sujin moved quietly around the examination table, taking readings with her medical scanner. The device beeped softly as it analyzed the alien's vital signs. Everything seemed normal, except for his eyes. Dr. Minho entered the medical bay carrying a tablet with information about Kethrani physiology. "I've pulled up everything we have on your species," he said to Baekho. "But I have to admit our medical databases don't have much detail about Kethrani eye structure." "My people do not often seek medical help from others," Baekho replied. "We prefer to heal ourselves or accept our fate." "Then why did you come to us?" Taemin asked. The great warrior was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with shame. "Because my own people have abandoned me." Sujin stopped her scanning and looked at Baekho with surprise. "Abandoned you? But you're famous across the galaxy." Baekho's laugh was bitter. "Fame means nothing when you can no longer hunt. The Kethrani respect only strength and skill. A blind warrior is worse than useless. He is a burden." Taemin felt anger rising in his chest. "That's horrible." "It is our way," Baekho said simply. "I do not blame them. I would have done the same before this happened to me." "Tell us about your last hunt," Minho said, settling into a chair nearby. "Maybe that will help us understand what caused your blindness." Beckho's expression changed, becoming distant as he remembered. It was 5 years ago. I was tracking a war criminal named Vextar through the Omega Nebula. He had stolen weapons from a peaceful colony and killed many innocent beings. The Omega Nebula, Sujin said with concern. That area is full of dangerous radiation. Yes, Vextar thought. He could hide there because most ships cannot survive the radiation for long. But I had modifications made to my ship. I could track him even through the nebula's storms. Taman leaned forward with interest. How long were you in the nebula? 3 months. Vextar was clever and kept moving from one hiding spot to another. Each time I found his trail, he would jump to a new system deeper in the nebula. 3 months of radiation exposure. Minho muttered, making notes on his tablet. That could definitely cause eye damage. I finally cornered him near a neutron star. Beckho continued. The radiation there was incredible, but I could not let him escape. We fought for 6 hours in the shadow of that dying star. And you won? Sujin asked. I always win my hunts, but the cost was higher than I knew at the time. Taman stood up and moved closer to examine Beckho's eyes. Even without medical instruments, he could see the thick cataracts that covered both eyes like gray veils. The radiation from the neutron star must have damaged the proteins in your eye lenses. Can you fix it? Beckho asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Taman looked at Minho, who shook his head slightly. They had never performed eye surgery on a Kethrani before. They did not even know if human surgical techniques would work on alien physiology. I don't know, Taman admitted, but I'm willing to try. Beckho's ears perked up with hope. You would do this for me? Even though I am not human? That's what we do here, Sujin said with a smile. We heal anyone who needs help. But I have nothing to offer in return. Beckho said, my ship is barely functional. I have no money or trade goods. I can only offer my gratitude. That's enough, Taman said firmly. Minho cleared his throat. Before we make any promises, we need to run more tests. Kethrani eye structure might be completely different from human eyes. We could make things worse if we're not careful. I understand, Beckho said, but please know that you have already given me something precious. What's that? Sujin asked. Hope. For months, I believed I would spend the rest of my life in darkness. Every other species I contacted either turned me away or demanded payment I could not provide. You are the first to offer help without asking what you would get in return. Taman felt his determination strengthen. This proud warrior had humbled himself to seek help. Traveling across the galaxy with nothing but hope, the least they could do was try. Sujin, prepare the advanced scanning equipment, he said. I want detailed images of his eye structure. Right away, doctor. As Sujin bustled around the medical bay preparing equipment, Taman sat down next to Beckho. Tell me more about your people. How do they view blindness? Among the Kethrani, sight is everything. We are hunters by nature. Our eyes are our most important weapon. A Kethrani who cannot see cannot hunt, and a Kethrani who cannot hunt has no place in society. That seems harsh. It is survival. Our homeworld is dangerous, full of predators and harsh environments. Only the strong survive to reproduce and pass on their genes. But you've survived 5 years with your blindness getting worse, Minho pointed out. That shows incredible strength. Beckho was quiet for a moment. I survived by living off my reputation. Other species still feared the name of the White Hunter. But reputation fades when you can no longer back it up with action. The scanning equipment hummed to life as Sujin finished the preparations. We're ready for the detailed scans. As they began the long process of mapping Beckho's eye structure, Taman found himself thinking about the warrior's journey. How desperate must he have been to seek help from aliens his people probably considered inferior? How much pride had he swallowed to make this trip? One more question, Taman said as the scanners did their work. Why did you choose to come to a human medical station? There are other species with advanced medical technology. Beckho smiled for the first time since arriving. Because humans have a reputation too. You are known throughout the galaxy as the species that never gives up on hopeless cases. Dr. Taman stared at the scan results on his computer screen for the third time. The images showed Beck-Ho's eyes in perfect detail, revealing the extent of the damage caused by neutron star radiation. The cataracts were thick and complex, unlike anything he had seen in human patients. "This is going to be challenging," he muttered to himself. Sujin looked over his shoulder at the scans. "I've never seen cataracts like these. They're not just clouding the lens. The radiation seems to have changed the actual structure of the eye tissue. That's what makes this interesting," Taman said, his excitement growing despite the difficulty. Normal cataracts form when proteins in the lens clump together, but these look like the proteins have been completely altered by the radiation. Dr. Minho entered the office carrying a cup of coffee and looking tired. He had spent the entire night researching Kethrani anatomy and consulting with medical experts across human space. "I have good news and bad news," Minho said, sitting down heavily in his chair. "Give me the bad news first," Taman replied. "We're completely on our own. I contacted 12 different xenobiology experts, and none of them have ever performed eye surgery on a Kethrani. Most of them think we're crazy for even considering it." Sujin frowned. "What about the good news?" "The good news is that Kethrani eye structure is similar enough to human eyes that our surgical techniques should work. The basic anatomy is the same, just bigger and more complex." Taman leaned back in his chair, thinking. "What about the risks?" "Significant," Minho admitted. Kethrani have different reactions to anesthesia than humans. Their blood pressure and heart rate patterns are completely different. If something goes wrong during surgery, we might not be able to save him. And if we do nothing, he stays blind for the rest of his life. The three medical professionals sat in silence for a moment, each considering the weight of the decision. Outside the office window, they could see Beck-Ho in the medical bay, sitting quietly on his specially reinforced bed. Even in his stillness, the warrior radiated a sense of contained power. "He's been telling stories to the other patients," Sujin said softly. "What kind of stories?" Taman asked. "About his hunts, about the places he's seen and the creatures he's tracked across the galaxy." The Vortani trader with the broken arm was completely fascinated. Minho raised an eyebrow. "I thought Kethrani were supposed to be aggressive and antisocial." "That's what I thought too," Sujin replied. "But Beck-Ho is different. He's gentle with the smaller patients and he seems genuinely interested in learning about other species." Taman turned back to his computer and pulled up a new set of scans. "Look at this." I ran a comparison between his eye structure and human eyes. The similarities are remarkable. The images showed side-by-side views of human and Kethrani eyes. While Beck-Ho's eyes were much larger, the basic components were arranged in nearly identical patterns. The lens, cornea, and retina are all in the same positions, Taman continued. The main difference is size and the presence of additional light-gathering structures that give Kethrani better night vision. "So you think the surgery's possible?" Minho asked. "I think it's our best option, but I'll need to modify our surgical instruments for his larger eye structure." Sujin stood up suddenly. "I have an idea. What if we ask Beck-Ho about Kethrani medical practices? He might know traditional treatments that could help." The three doctors walked to the medical bay where Beck-Ho was sitting with a young Zephyrian patient. The childlike alien was perched on the warrior's massive arm, listening with wide eyes to a story about hunting space pirates near the Andromeda Spiral. "And that's how I learned that space pirates are much easier to catch when they think they're the ones doing the hunting." Beck-Ho finished with a rumbling chuckle. The Zephyrian clapped its four hands together excitedly. "Tell another one." "Perhaps later, little friend," Beck-Ho said gently, his head turning toward the approaching doctors. "I believe the healers wished to speak with me." Taman was amazed at how easily Beck-Ho had identified their approach without being able to see them. "Your hearing is incredible. When you lose one sense, the others become stronger," Beck-Ho replied. "I can identify most species by the sound of their footsteps now." Sujin helped the young Zephyrian down from Beck-Ho's arm and sent it back to its own bed. Then she turned to the warrior with her question. "Beck-Ho, do your people have any traditional treatments for eye problems?" The massive alien considered this carefully. There are some old remedies, but nothing that would help with radiation damage. Most Kethrani eye problems are caused by injuries from fights or accidents. What about surgery? Minho asked. Kethrani healers can remove damaged eyes, but they cannot repair them. A warrior who loses his sight is expected to accept his fate with honor. Taemin moved closer to Bekho's bed. We want to try to restore your sight, but the surgery will be dangerous. There's a real chance that something could go wrong. Bekho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady and determined. Doctor, I have already died. The Bekho, who was the greatest hunter in the galaxy, died when his eyes failed. If you can bring him back, I am willing to risk everything. There's something else, Taemin said. Even if the surgery works, your eyes might not be exactly the same as before. We might need to use artificial lens implants. Artificial lenses, Sujin explained. Synthetic replacements for the natural lenses in your eyes. They're made from materials that won't be damaged by radiation like your original lenses were. Would I be able to see normally? Better than normally, Taemin said, with growing excitement. Human synthetic lenses can actually improve vision beyond natural capability. You might end up seeing better than you ever did before. Bekho's ears perked forward with interest. You would do this for me? Give me not just my old sight, but better sight? That's the plan, Minho said. If you're willing to trust us. The warrior reached out with one massive hand, moving carefully, until he found Taemin's arm. His grip was gentle but firm, the claws carefully retracted. Doctor, I have traveled across half the galaxy to find someone willing to help me. I have already given you my trust. Now I give you my life as well. Taemin felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just about performing surgery. It was about restoring hope to a being who had lost everything that gave his life meaning. We'll start preparing immediately, he said. The surgery will take place tomorrow morning. As the doctors left to begin their preparations, Sujin looked back at Bekho. The warrior had resumed telling stories to the other patients, but there was something different about him now. He sat straighter, and his voice carried a note of hope that hadn't been there before. He really believes we can do this, she said to Taemin. Then we better make sure we don't let him down. The surgical suite had been modified overnight to accommodate Bekho's massive frame. The operating table had been reinforced with titanium supports, and all the surgical equipment had been adjusted for the scale of Kethrani anatomy. Dr. Taemin stood at the scrub station, washing his hands for the third time as he tried to calm his nerves. Ready for this? Dr. Minho asked, joining him at the sink. As ready as I can be for something I've never done before, Taemin replied honestly. Sujin entered the prep area carrying the specially designed surgical instruments. The hospital's engineering team had worked through the night to create tools that could handle the delicate work needed on Bekho's eyes. Each instrument was 3 times larger than normal, but maintained the precision required for microsurgery. How's our patient? Taemin asked. Surprisingly calm, Sujin answered. He's been meditating for the past hour. He says it's a Kethrani warrior tradition before battle. He sees this as a battle? He says it's the most important fight of his life. The 3 medical professionals finished their preparations and entered the surgical suite. Bekho lay on the operating table, looking enormous even in the enlarged space. His white fur had been carefully cleaned around his face, and sensors monitored his vital signs on screens around the room. Good morning, Bekho, Taemin said gently. How are you feeling? Ready, doctor, the warrior replied in his deep voice. I have waited 5 years for this day. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Chen Wei-Ming, approached with the modified anesthesia, designed specifically for Kethrani physiology. This might feel strange at first, he warned. Your species processes anesthesia differently than humans. Bekho nodded slightly. I trust you. As the anesthesia took effect, Bekho's massive form relaxed on the table. His breathing became deep and steady, monitored constantly by the medical equipment surrounding him. Taemin waited until all vital signs showed the warrior was completely unconscious before beginning. First eye, Taemin announced to his team. Using a specialized microscope designed for the surgery, Tae-min carefully examined Bakho's left eye. The cataract was even more complex up close, with layers of damaged tissue that had formed over years of gradual deterioration. Beginning the first incision, he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The microsurgical laser made a precise cut in the eye's outer layer. Tae-min worked slowly and carefully, removing the damaged tissue piece by piece. Each step required absolute precision. One wrong move could cause permanent damage to the warrior's vision. Vital signs are stable, Minho reported from his position at the monitoring station. Soo-jin assisted by keeping the surgical field clear and handing Tae-min the instruments he needed. Her steady hands and calm presence helped keep him focused on the delicate work. 2 hours into the surgery, they encountered their first major complication. Bakho's blood pressure suddenly spiked and his heart rate became irregular. "What's happening?" Tae-min asked without looking away from the microscope. "His body is rejecting the anesthesia," Wei-ming said urgently. "I need to adjust the mixture." "How long will that take?" 5 minutes to stabilize him. Tae-min kept his hand steady as Wei-ming worked to balance the anesthesia. Around them, monitors beeped with warnings as Bakho's alien physiology fought against the foreign chemicals in his system. "There," Wei-ming said finally. "His vitals are stabilizing." The surgery continued, but now everyone was more tense. They had been reminded that they were operating on an alien with completely different biology than anything they had trained for. 3 hours in, Tae-min successfully removed the first cataract. The damaged lens came out in pieces, years of radiation, damage having made it brittle and fractured. In its place, he carefully inserted the first synthetic lens implant. "First lens is in position," he announced, beginning work on the second eye. The second eye proved even more challenging. The cataract had grown around blood vessels in a way that made removal extremely difficult. Tae-min had to work around the delicate structures while removing the damaged tissue. "This is taking longer than expected," Minho observed, checking the time. "I know, but I can't rush this part," Tae-min replied. "If I damage these blood vessels, he could lose all vision in this eye." Soo-jin wiped sweat from Tae-min's forehead as he continued the painstaking work. Hour by hour, he carefully removed the layers of damaged tissue. His hands never shook, his focus never wavered. 6 hours into the surgery, another crisis struck. Bakho's heart rate suddenly dropped dangerously low. "He's going into cardiac arrest," Wei-ming shouted. The surgical suite erupted into controlled chaos as the medical team worked to stabilize their patient. Electric paddles were used to restart Bakho's heart, while drugs were injected to support his circulation. "Come on, Bakho," Tae-min whispered. "You've survived worse than this." After 10 terrifying minutes, the warrior's heart rhythm returned to normal. His vital signs slowly stabilized, but everyone in the room knew how close they had come to losing him. "Should we stop the surgery?" Minho asked. Tae-min looked at the partially completed work. The second cataract was halfway removed, and the eye was in a delicate state. "If we stop now, he'll definitely lose vision in this eye. We have to finish." The eye team pressed on, even more careful than before. Every few minutes they checked Bakho's vital signs, ready to stop at the first sign of trouble. But the warrior's body seemed to have accepted the medical intervention, and his condition remained stable. 8 hours after they began, Tae-min inserted the second synthetic lens. The surgery was complete, but now came the most nerve-wracking part, waiting to see if it had worked. "Bandages are in place," Soo-jin reported. "Both eyes are protected." "How long before we know if the surgery was successful?" Minho asked. "He should wake up in about an hour," Wei-ming answered. "But we won't know about his vision until the swelling goes down. That could take several days." As they waited for Bakho to wake up, Tae-min felt exhaustion wash over him. 8 hours of microsurgery had drained him physically and emotionally. But underneath the tiredness was a growing excitement. The surgery had gone as well as he could have hoped. 45 minutes later, Bakho began to stir. His massive head moved slightly, and his breathing changed from the deep unconsciousness of anesthesia to the lighter sleep of natural rest. "Bekho?" Taemin called softly. "Can you hear me?" The warrior's ears twitched, and he made a low rumbling sound deep in his chest. "Take your time," Sujin said gently. "You've been asleep for a long time." Slowly, carefully, Bekho opened his eyes. The first sight that greeted him after months of darkness was Dr. Taemin's concerned face leaning over him. For a moment, the warrior simply stared, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Then, tears began to flow from his newly restored eyes. "I can see you," Bekho whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "I can see your face." 3 days after the surgery, Bekho stood at the observation window of the medical bay, staring out at the stars with wonder in his newly restored eyes. Dr. Taemin watched from nearby, amazed at how quickly the Kethrani warrior had recovered from the operation. "How does your vision feel?" Taemin asked. Bekho turned toward him, and Taemin was startled by the intensity of the warrior's gaze. The synthetic lenses had not only restored his sight, but enhanced it beyond normal Kethrani capability. His eyes now seemed to glow with an inner light. "Better than it ever was," Bekho replied, his voice filled with awe. "I can see details I never noticed before. The patterns of light from distant stars, the tiny movements of insects on other ships docked at the station. It is like experiencing sight for the first time." Sujin entered the room carrying Bekho's discharge papers. "All your test results are perfect," she announced with a smile. "You're cleared to leave whenever you're ready." The massive warrior's expression became serious. "Before I go, there is something important I must do." He moved to the center of the room and slowly knelt down on one knee. For a being of his size, the gesture was both graceful and powerful. His white head bowed low as he spoke in formal tones. "Dr. Kim Taemin, Nurse Park Sujin, Dr. Lee Min-ho, and all the healers of this station, you have given me more than sight. You have given me back my life, my purpose, my future. By the ancient laws of my people, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Taemin felt uncomfortable with the formal ceremony. "Bekho, you don't owe us anything, we were just doing our job." The warrior raised his head, his enhanced eyes meeting Taemin's gaze. "Doctor, you do not understand. What you have done goes far beyond duty. You risked your careers, your reputation, even my life to help someone who had nothing to offer in return. This is not common in the galaxy." "Maybe not," Sujin said softly. "But it should be." Bekho stood up slowly, his full height impressive, even in the large medical bay. "I wish to offer you something that no Kethrani has ever offered to another species. I pledge my life to protect this station and everyone on it. This is a sacred oath that binds me until death." Dr. Min-ho, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "That's very generous, but we can't ask you to give up your freedom for us." "You are not asking. I am choosing. This station is a beacon of hope in a dark part of the galaxy. It must be protected." Taemin was about to protest again when the station's alarm system suddenly activated. Red lights flashed throughout the medical bay as Lieutenant Park Jun-seo's voice came over the communication system. "All hands to emergency stations. We have multiple ships approaching at high speed. Configuration suggests pirates or raiders." Through the observation window, they could see several dark ships emerging from hyperspace. The vessels were clearly military in design, but bore no official markings. Their weapons were already charging for attack. "How many ships?" Min-ho asked, into his communicator. 7 confirmed, Jun-seo replied. "They're demanding we surrender all medical supplies and equipment. They're also asking for any valuable patients we might be treating." Bekho's eyes narrowed as he studied the approaching fleet. With his enhanced vision, he could see details that others missed. "Corvani pirates," he said with certainty. "I recognize their ship modifications. They are known for attacking medical facilities and selling the supplies on the black market. Our defense systems can't handle 7 ships, Jun-seo reported. We're requesting immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel." Taemin felt fear growing in his chest. The station had minimal weapons designed only to deter small-scale attacks. Against a full pirate fleet, they were defenseless. "I need to get to my ship," Bekho said suddenly. "Your ship is barely functional," Sujin protested. "You said so yourself," The warrior's expression was grim but determined. "The engines work, and that is all I need." He moved toward the door with surprising speed for such a large being. Taimin followed, trying to understand what Bekho planned to do. "You can't fight 7 ships alone," Taimin called after him. Bekho paused at the doorway and looked back. "Doctor, you gave me new eyes. Now let me show you what the White Hunter can do when he can truly see." 20 minutes later, Bekho's ship undocked from Mercy's Edge. The vessel looked ancient and battle-scarred compared to the sleek pirate ships, but it moved with deadly purpose as it positioned itself between the station and the attacking fleet. In the medical bay, the staff watched through the observation windows as the lone ship faced the pirate fleet. It seemed impossible that one warrior could stand against so many enemies. "This is Bekho, the White Hunter, to all ships attacking the station," came the warrior's voice over the communication system. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw, or I will destroy you all." Laughter came back over the radio from the pirate. "Ships. One old ship against our entire fleet? You must be insane." "I am not insane," Bekho replied calmly. "I am grateful." What happened next became legend among the spacers and traders of the Outer Rim. Bekho's ship moved like a living thing, dancing between the pirate vessels with impossible precision. His enhanced eyes allowed him to see every attack before it came, every weakness in their formations, every mistake they made. One by one, the pirate ships fell. Some were destroyed outright by perfectly placed shots. Others were disabled and left drifting helplessly in space. The battle lasted only 15 minutes, but it was completely one-sided. When the last pirate ship exploded in a ball of fire, Bekho's voice came over the communication system again. This time he was broadcasting on all frequencies, ensuring that every ship in the sector could hear him. "This is Bekho, Guardian of Mercy's Edge. This station is under my protection. The humans here do not heal for profit or politics. They heal because it is right. Any who threaten them will face the same fate as these pirates." His ship returned to the docking bay, and Bekho emerged to find the entire station crew waiting for him. The looks of awe and gratitude on their faces made the warrior stand even taller. Taimin approached him with wonder in his eyes. "How did you do that?" "You gave me perfect sight, Doctor. With these eyes I can see every movement, every opportunity, every weakness. I am no longer just a hunter. I am something more." In the weeks that followed, word spread quickly through the galaxy about the White Hunter's protection of Mercy's Edge. Ships began arriving from distant systems carrying patients who had heard that humans would treat anyone regardless of species or ability to pay. The station's reputation grew, and with it came more doctors and nurses willing to work on the frontier. What had started as a small medical outpost became a symbol of hope and healing for the entire sector. And always watching over it all was Bekho, the Guardian, who had found his sight and his purpose through human compassion. The galaxy learned a new truth. When humans heal, they create not just patients but protectors who will defend that healing with their lives.